It was a big Sunday for the Maize and Blue. Of course, those need to translate into big Saturdays down the road. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down, yes, the Maize and Blue with Justin Rowe. Catch him on Stadium and Main podcast. Of course, if you enjoy the content right here, give us a like, subscribe, hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live and drop new content. Justin, how are we doing today?
Doing great. It's been sunny a couple days in a row here in Ann Arbor. It seems like the weather's turning for the good. I know last time we talked, I think we had 16 inches of snow or something like that. So spring, it feels like spring is here. I know you're not a basketball guy, but Michigan basketball just went up to number 2 in the country. So Michigan athletics in general had a great weekend, great last week. And so things are looking up here in Ann Arbor.
I've covered a lot of basketball in my past, but currently no basketball for me. So I got to say, the term 5-star gets thrown around way too much, I think, around college football circles for people that are just getting a glimpse of recruiting, aren't really into it, and say, well, Alabama gets all the 5 stars and there's a ton of it, like there's 5 stars all over the place. It's not many of these guys, and not many that hail from the state of Michigan in terms of their high school football play. So to get one of these guys is huge. And Will Johnson, the 5-star cornerback, on Sunday said, I'm going to Michigan.
Yeah, and honestly, so it is a huge get. Obviously, it was gigantic for this new Michigan coaching staff, Mo Linguist and Mike McDonald, the new co-coordinators and everything on the defensive side of the ball. But I'll say this. It was a necessity. And it honestly was a layup. His dad played football at Michigan. He hailed from the state of Michigan here. So, I mean, I think if Will Johnson decided not to go to Michigan, we'd probably be on here saying, wow, what a huge miss for Michigan. So as big of a get as it was, I think it was a pretty big layup for Michigan. So it does say good things about the coaching staff for sure, that they were able to secure this commitment, especially just only being on campus for the last month or so. But I just have to say, you know, these are the types of guys that Michigan, if they truly do want to win on Saturdays, as you said in the beginning, they need to get these guys, especially coming from the state of Michigan. And Domani Jackson was one of those guys as well, who Michigan lost out on to USC, where now there's rumors that because Will Johnson has committed to Michigan, maybe they can get Domani Jackson back too in a late push. But these are the guys that if Michigan does want to take things to the next level, they do need to get these guys on a regular basis. And so, but now, you know, now with what this 21 class looks like for the secondary, they've got 2 4-star corners and 1 5-star corner here in Will Johnson. So it's a huge class for Michigan. Mo Linguist has come out and said this is going to be one of the best classes in Michigan history. He has predicted that. So we talked about it right before we got on here. Maybe they want to set the bar lower a little bit so that they can exceed some expectations instead of setting that bar so high. And then, you know, obviously you have to go out and prove it. How are you going to produce with this talent that you have? Are you going to be able to develop these guys into actual contributors on Saturdays instead of them being, you know, a bust or even just a low-level guy? You need to have production from a guy like Daxton Hill, who was a 5-star coming in, and then, you know, he's had 5-star production. So when you put all those pieces together, it does look good for Michigan going, you know, moving into the future. But we've seen the recruitments and we've seen these guys come in, and it hasn't produced to wins on Saturdays. But as we're sitting here March 1st, I do think things are looking good for Michigan in terms of the future in recruiting and with this new coaching staff.
Will Johnson has said repeatedly that 2 of the main draws for Michigan is, number 1, academics, great school, and also that he understands the need. He understands that he's going to immediately be called upon to play and that the opportunity is going to be wide open for him to step on the field from day one and have that opportunity. And to extend on your point, as we discussed last week, we saw Michigan secondary that was arguably the worst since fill in the blank, roughly 10 or 12 years ago, probably in those Rich Rod, early Brady Hoke years of 3-9 and 5-7 under Rich Rod in particular. I'm not going to drag Brady Hoke into that mess because he had a pretty good run before his final season. But at the same time, the secondary help coming in for 2021 was just 2 3-stars, which, again, those individuals could turn out to be tremendous players, but most likely what you're getting are 2 3-stars, and they should probably be serviceable, but not the kind of guys that are going to change the trajectory in that particular unit. So good news for Michigan football, but you got to hang on to that recruitment now and that commitment for 10 months until National Signing Day. Probably what makes it a little bit stronger of a commitment, I would think, would be the in-state factor. Then also, as you say, the legacy with his father, Deion Johnson.
Yeah, I think now it is tough with those early commits that you do have to hang on to those guys, right? You almost kind of want, as a fan, you almost want them to wait a little bit, weigh all their options, so you don't have to, hang on to that guy for so long. But that's how college recruiting is now, because as soon as a guy commits like that, these other schools don't just say, all right, we're done, we're going to lay off this guy's to Michigan. So they'll still come on hard. It's definitely, I assume, when we're 9 months down the road, there will be some big late pushes by Ohio State and USC, who are in the top 3 for Will Johnson. So obviously Ohio State being the big rival, they're going to want to steal a 5-star from them, from Michigan here. And with Domani Jackson at USC currently, they're going to make a push and say, hey, are you sure you don't want to be in sunny California and play with your best bud, Domani, here instead of in Ann Arbor, where it's going to be, down in the 20s and 30s when you're playing in late November? So it's definitely going to be a tough job for them to keep him for the next 10 months. But I do think that I think other schools won't pursue him as much because of the legacy. I think it was basically a done deal for with his dad Deion playing at Michigan. Seemed like he really pushed him there and told him that he had a great experience, and et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that will be tough, but I think that it won't be as bad of a push or as big of a push from other schools than maybe some other recruits that don't have any ties.